This is Police Paddock in Tinana. It is a wonderful environmental reserve not far out of the center of Maryborough. It's great for if you want to find koalas or other wildlife, but also beneath the surface, beneath where I'm standing now and throughout the Police Paddock, and indeed further afield in Tinana, is a very, very significant ruin, a World War II artifact from when Australia brought Americans over and when Australia was really gearing up for conflict in the Pacific. Here in Tinana at Police Paddock, you can get an understanding of what was happening in the later stages of World War II. What is preserved here was actually part of a much larger World War II logistical endeavor which stretched for kilometers across Tinana. And you can find other parts of it here in Tinana, in being the concrete slabs for people's sheds, their driveways, and just in people's backyards as remnants from this World War II ruins. In February 1943, orders were given for plans to be drawn up for this complex, this camp here, with all the necessary facilities and an interconnecting road system, which people walk along now. The U.S. Army 27th Division was to arrive in Australia in November 1943 and occupy the site. Preliminary plans were drawn up and construction commenced. The site would require facilities, power, running water for more than 15,000 men. 18 miles of roadway were to be required, including 50,000 cubic yards of gravel. However, despite the project being identified as a priority, there was a lack of labor, and months into the project there were still only 17 men working here on the site for this important prioritized project for the war. By October, there was a stream of prefabricated huts on places like where I'm standing right now, pipes and other building materials arriving here at the site, but it was clear that the November finish date was not going to be achieved due to favorable developments in the war. There were thoughts of abandoning this construction, but it was about halfway finished, so they determined to push ahead just with a later completion date of late January 1944. The layout is dispersed over 23 square miles of undulating, now forested country, and clearing for the roads and buildings required a significant amount of heavy machinery, and the pipeline to the water reservoir was 18 miles long. The administration for the construction of this site actually was at the building on Wharf Street, which is now the Maryborough Military and Colonial Museum. Walking amongst the ruins here in Police Paddock, it takes a fair amount of imagination to get an understanding of the kitchens, ablution blocks, recreation huts, roads, warehouses, latrines, administration buildings, infirmary huts, and other buildings that were here, that were operational, although not nearly to the scale that was intended. By May of 1944, there were no plans for any more major U.S. Army divisional units to be deployed within Australia, and at this stage, with the 27th Division having never come to Australia, it was handed over to become an Australian staging camp. The site never saw the many thousands of Americans it was quickly constructed for. Built in wartime when Australia was under threat, in peacetime it has been slowly divided up, and backyard sheds have now utilized these slabs that were constructed for mess halls. But here in Police Paddock, the only sounds are the birds and the wind and the rain that I'm standing in right now, in trees which watch over what is left of this long forgotten site, which demonstrates the amount of resources that were put into the war effort, and then when things changed, when the war effort started to be more positive and there were different developments. But it is a very significant historical place for Maryborough, Australia, and the World War II effort.